Hi Team We Run, Coach Alexa here. I gave blood recently, as I do quite regularly, and it got me thinking about sharing a little bit of sort of updated research that's come out around the impact of donating blood on people who are, highly trained athletes. So we're talking sort of elite level athletes where this research has been done. So don't want to speak for all of you, probably not completely as applicable to myself, but I thought it was interesting regardless. So there are a few key elements of our blood which are quite useful, and they kind of replenish in different amounts. So let's just briefly step through those. So first of all is our total blood volume. So you normally give about a unit, which is a pint. Most of us, depending on just how sort of big we are from a skeleton and blood volume point of view, have around 10 pints in us. So that's about 10% for an average sort of person that you're giving away. So the biggest part of that, over half our blood volume, is just water. So that's why they encourage you when you give blood to drink plenty before. They thrust some juice at you when you arrive. They thrust more juice at you before you leave, because that's a really important part of it. And particularly if you have tendency to feel a little bit lightheaded, or if it's a hot time of day like it is at the moment, you need that water volume in your blood, because that's being transported around the body, for example, to produce sweat to keep you cool. And it's that low blood volume that leads to potentially low blood pressure and a bit of potential dizziness after you've donated. But the great thing is you can top that up pretty much immediately. So slightly longer, let's go through it in terms of slightly longer and gradually longer timescales. The next thing that's important in the blood is plasma. So plasma, the best thing I've heard it described as, is kind of the netting that sits in the blood as a container for all the other stuff that's in the blood. So that takes around 24 hours to come back to its normal levels, to be regenerated and more created by the body. So again, pretty short turnaround time. After that is our white blood cells, which run our immune system. So they bounce back within a few days. So that's great too, that they're coming back quickly. But potentially, if you are really worn down or under the weather, that's why they tell you not to come if you're coming down with a cold or have had some sort of cold or infectious illness recently. A, it might be lingering in your bloodstream. You don't want to pass it on to the vulnerable people that are getting your blood. And B, if your immune system's already having to work, you don't want to have that few days of reduced white blood cell count. Now, the two things I guess that are more particular interest to us as people who run or train or do activities and exercise are our red blood cells and our hemoglobin. And unfortunately for us, they're things that take that little bit longer to rejuvenate. So our red blood cells are the things that carry oxygen around our body to the stuff that needs it, predominantly for us. I guess we're thinking about our muscle cells. So that will impact, for example, our oxygen carrying capacity, our VO2 max, and that red blood cell count takes between 4 to 6 weeks to bounce back up again. Longer for women due to the way our hormones impact the way that we metabolize iron. So that is something worth bearing in mind. You're potentially going to get a 4 to 6 week period where our blood cell count is lower. Taking iron supplements can help. And this is tied in also with hemoglobin levels. So it can take between 6 and 12 weeks for our hemoglobin levels to come back up. So that's the chemical in the red blood cells that does the clever oxygen transportation bit. And again, iron supplementation can really, or ensuring you get enough iron in your diet, either from meat or from dark green leafy vegetables, broccoli, kale, etc., spinach. So iron supplementation can help, and this is the reason, the longer time it takes for women's red blood cell and hemoglobin count to bounce back than men's, is the reason why the donation frequency window is slightly longer for women than men. So it's worth bearing in mind. Giving blood is an amazing thing to do for people who have surgeries, ladies who've had babies, people who've been in accidents, people with longer term health conditions like sickle cell anemia, people who are having cancer treatment. All sorts of people benefit hugely. But it might just be worth, if you've got a really, really big race or you've got a really, really key training block, thinking about how you plan that. You're going to have a little bit of a lower threshold, kind of oxygen carrying threshold within your blood within your body, because of that lower hemoglobin and lower red blood cell count, for Again, I have 4 to 6 weeks for red blood cells, 6 to 12 weeks for hemoglobin post-donation. There is potentially an argument that some research suggests, but it's not an equivocal sort of statement, that, you know, it encourages us to obviously produce new red blood cells, white blood cells, all sorts, but we're doing that all the time in the background anyway. So yeah, please do give blood, but plan your big training blocks around it, perhaps. Hope that's useful. Happy running.